failed to explain Professor Lyle, who was always utterly urbane. She glanced with appreciation in the professor's direction. Lord Macawn's frown intensified. Miss Terabody considered that the lack of civilized behavior might be the sole provenance of Lord Macawn. Rumor had it he had only lived in London a comparatively short while, and he had relocated from Scotland, of all barbaric places. The professor coughed delicately to get his alpha's attention. The Earl's yellow gaze focused on him with such intensity it should have actually burned.
Aye.
Professor Lyle was crouched over the vampire, examining the hair stick with interest. He was poking about the wound, a spotless white lawn handkerchief wrapped about his hand.
Very little mess, actually. Almost complete lack of blood spatter.
He leaned forward and sniffed.
Definitely Westminster,
he stated. The Earl of Wolsey seemed to understand. He turned his piercing gaze onto the dead vampire.
He must have been very hungry.
Professor Lyle turned the body over.
What happened here?
He took out a small set of wooden tweezers from the pocket of his waistcoat and picked at the back of the vampire's trousers. He paused, rummaged about in his coat pockets, and produced a diminutive leather case. He clicked it open and removed a most bizarre pair of goggle-like things. They were gold in color, with multiple lenses on one side, between which there appeared to be some kind of liquid. The contraption was also riddled with small knobs and dials. Professor Lyle propped the ridiculous things onto his nose and bent back over the vampire, twiddling at the dials expertly. "Goodness gracious me!" exclaimed Alexia. "What are you wearing? It looks like the unfortunate progeny of an illicit union between a pair of binoculars and some opera glasses. What on earth are they called? Binocticles? Spectaculars?" The Earl snorted his amusement and then tried to pretend he hadn't.
How about glassicles?
He suggested, apparently unable to resist a contribution. There was a twinkle in his eye as he said it, and that Alexia found rather unsettling. Professor Lyle looked up from his examination and glared at the both of them. His right eye was hideously magnified. It was quite gruesome and made Alexia start involuntarily.
These are my monocular cross-magnification lenses with spectrum modifier attachment, and they are invaluable. Now, thank you not to mock them so openly.
He turned once more to the task at hand. Oh, Miss Terabody was suitably impressed. "How do they work?" she inquired. Professor Lyle looked back up at her, suddenly animated.
Well, you see, it's really quite interesting. By turning this little knob here, you can change the distance between the two panes of glass here, allowing the liquid to...
The Earl's groan interrupted them.
Don't get him started, Miss Terabody, or we'll be here all night.
Looking slightly crestfallen, Professor Lyle turned back to the dead vampire.
Now, what is this substance all over his clothing?
His boss, preferring the direct approach, resumed his frown and looked accusingly at Alexia.
What on God's green earth is that muck?
Miss Terabody said, sadly, treacle tart. A tragic loss, I dare say." Her stomach chose that moment to growl in agreement. She would have colored gracefully with embarrassment had she not possessed the complexion of one of those heathen Italians, as her mother said, who never colored, gracefully or otherwise. Convincing her mother that Christianity had, to all intents and purposes, originated with the Italians, thus making them the exact opposite of heathen, was a waste of time and breath. Alexia refused to apologize for the boisterousness of her stomach and favored Lord Macawn with a defiant glare. Her stomach was the reason she'd snaked away in the first place. Her mamma had assured her that there would be food at the ball, yet all that had appeared on offer when they arrived was a bowl of punch and some sadly wilted watercress. Never one to let her stomach get the better of her, Alexia had ordered tea from the butler and retreated to the library. Since she normally spent any ball lurking on the outskirts of the dance floor, trying to look as though she did not want to be asked to waltz, tea was a welcome alternative. It was rude to order refreshments from someone else's staff, but when one was promised sandwiches and there was nothing but watercress, well, one simply had to take matters into one's own hands.